Pros and cons of living in America as a Black person, the honest reality. America is one of the most powerful and influential countries in the world. It drives global culture, sets economic trends, and shapes conversations far beyond its borders. For millions of people, it represents opportunity. For others, it represents complexity. For Black Americans, it's often both at the same time. The reality is layered. There is upward mobility and visible success. There is cultural dominance and economic participation at levels unmatched in many parts of the world. And yet, there are structural gaps, regional disparities, and social tensions that don't disappear just because progress exists. Most conversations about this topic fall into two extremes. Either America is framed as irredeemably broken, or it's portrayed as a perfectly equal playing field. The truth usually lives somewhere in between. So today, we're stepping away from headlines and emotional narratives. We're looking at this through a structured lens, the advantages, the challenges, and the nuance that often gets lost in online debates. Because the experience of living in America as a Black person isn't one story. It changes by state, by income level, by community, by generation. And that complexity matters. If you're looking for a balanced perspective grounded in data, cultural context, and economic realities, stay with me to the end. Subscribe to Mr. Globe for thoughtful global analysis that helps you understand systems clearly and navigate them wisely. Now, let us start with the pros. The advantages of living in America as a Black person. Number 1. Economic scale and opportunity. When we talk about economic scale, we're talking about size, velocity, and access. And in that category, the United States operates on a different level. The U.S. has the largest Black middle class in the world. Not regionally, not proportionally. In absolute scale, that matters. A large middle class means home ownership, professional careers, business formation, investment accounts, and generational planning happening at volumes many countries simply do not match. That doesn't mean equality is perfect. It means participation is massive. Black consumer spending in America reaches into the trillions. Black professionals occupy corporate leadership roles, federal positions, academic institutions, entertainment conglomerates, and tech companies. The ecosystem is vast. You're not navigating a small pond. You're operating inside one of the largest economic oceans on Earth. And then there's entrepreneurship. Black entrepreneurship in the United States continues to grow at one of the fastest rates among new business formations. From tech startups to logistics companies, beauty brands to real estate portfolios, there's momentum. Not just survival businesses, scalable enterprises. Access to capital markets, venture networks, SBA programs, corporate supplier diversity pipelines, and fintech platforms creates pathways that simply do not exist in many parts of the world. In many countries, you can start a business. In America, you can scale one. That difference is structural. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the wealth gap. Yes, the data shows significant disparities in median household wealth between Black and white Americans. Historical policies shaped that reality. Generational wealth did not begin on equal footing. But here's the part that often gets lost in extreme narratives. Scale and disparity can exist at the same time. The wealth gap is real. So is the economic engine. You can acknowledge systemic inequality in the USA while also recognizing that Black economic participation in America is globally unmatched in size. The corporate pathways are real. The tech ecosystem is real. The capital markets are real. And for many, those structures create upward mobility that would be difficult to replicate elsewhere. Both truths can exist at the same time. And understanding that complexity is what makes this conversation honest. Number 2. Cultural influence and global soft power. Economic strength is powerful. Cultural influence is magnetic. And in this category, Black American culture doesn't just participate, it leads. From hip-hop and R&B to fashion, film, and professional sports, Black American creativity has shaped global trends for decades. Not locally, not regionally, globally. Streaming charts in Europe, streetwear in Tokyo, slang in London, dance trends in Lagos, the fingerprints are visible everywhere. Hip-hop alone is now a multi-billion-dollar global industry. The NBA and NFL export not just games, but personalities and cultural aesthetics. Hollywood and streaming platforms distribute stories, soundtracks, and symbols across continents in real time. When a cultural moment happens in Atlanta, Los Angeles, or Houston, It doesn't stay there. It travels. Few countries offer that level of cultural reach. That reach matters because culture is currency. It shapes perception. It builds branding power. It creates visibility. And visibility translates into leverage in business, in media, in diplomacy, and even in entrepreneurship. When Black American artists headline global festivals, when athletes sign international endorsements, when filmmakers secure worldwide distribution deals, they aren't just earning income. They're expanding influence. They're shaping narrative. They're setting tone. This level of soft power is rare. Many Black communities internationally contribute creatively in powerful ways, but they often operate within smaller media ecosystems or limited global distribution channels. In the United States, the infrastructure, record labels, streaming platforms, sports leagues, film studios, digital marketing networks, amplifies output at scale, and scale changes everything. There's also something subtle here. Recognition. A Black entrepreneur, artist, or athlete emerging from the U.S. often enters the global market with built-in brand weight. American cultural exports carry visibility. That doesn't eliminate obstacles, but it does provide a larger stage. Of course, cultural dominance doesn't automatically erase structural challenges. Influence and inequality can coexist. Visibility does not equal immunity. But from a global standpoint, the level of cultural impact originating from Black America is unmatched in modern history. And that influence, that soft power, is a form of capital in its own right. Number 3. Legal protections and civil rights framework. One of the most overlooked advantages of living in the United States is structural, the legal framework itself. The U.S. has one of the most developed anti-discrimination systems in the world. Civil Rights Act protections, equal employment opportunity laws, housing discrimination statutes, voting rights legislation, these aren't abstract ideals. They are enforceable mechanisms. They can be cited, they can be litigated, they can be challenged in court. That matters more than people realize. In many parts of the world, discrimination may be socially discouraged but legally vague. In others, it's rarely prosecuted. In the United States, you can file complaints with federal agencies, pursue civil litigation, and escalate cases through state and federal courts. Companies face fines, institutions face lawsuits, policies get reviewed. The system isn't perfect, but it exists, and it can be pushed. That distinction is significant when comparing globally. There's also representation. Black Americans serve in Congress, lead major cities, sit on corporate boards, anchor news networks, and occupy federal judicial positions. Visibility in political office doesn't eliminate inequality, but it does create structural access to policymaking and oversight. Legal protection doesn't mean legal outcomes are always fair. Court cases take time. Enforcement varies. Regional culture influences application. But the framework provides leverage. It creates accountability channels that are formal, documented, and constitutionally grounded. It's the difference between having a complaint and having a case. The ability to challenge institutions through the court system, to mobilize around policy reform, and to influence legislation through organized advocacy is a structural advantage that many Black communities internationally do not have at comparable scale. Again, this isn't a claim of perfection. The American legal system is complex, slow, and sometimes frustrating. But from an institutional standpoint, it offers tools, and tools matter. When evaluating the honest reality of living in America as a Black person, the presence of a codified civil rights framework is not a small detail. It's foundational. It provides legal language, procedural pathways, and constitutional backing. Imperfect? Absolutely. Non-existent? No. And in global comparison, that difference carries weight. Now, let us move into terrain that requires precision, not emotion. The harder realities of living in America as a Black person. Number 1. The wealth gap. The wealth gap in the United States is not a slogan, it's measurable. Median wealth differences between Black and white households remain significant, and the numbers have been studied for decades. Depending on the dataset and year, the median white household holds several times the net worth of the median Black household. This isn't opinion, it's data. Wealth is different from income. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you own. Assets, equity, investments, businesses, property, minus debt. Wealth is what cushions you when income stops. It's what allows risk-taking. It's what turns emergencies into inconveniences instead of crises. And generational wealth accumulation in America did not start on equal footing. Homeownership policies in the 20th century, lending discrimination, redlining, and uneven access to capital shaped who built equity early and who didn't. If one group had a 50-year head start in compounding assets, the gap today isn't mysterious. It's arithmetic. That history shows up in modern statistics. Homeownership rates among Black Americans remain lower than those of white Americans. Lower homeownership means less housing equity. Less housing equity means fewer collateral options for business loans or investment leverage. Investment account participation rates also differ, affecting long-term compounding through stocks and retirement portfolios. And compounding is quiet but powerful. It's like gravity for money, slow, steady, and relentless over time. When families have fewer inherited assets, fewer trust funds, fewer paid-off homes, and less early access to capital markets, the starting line shifts. It doesn't eliminate opportunity. It changes the degree of financial cushioning. That's the key phrase. Financial cushioning. Economic setbacks hit differently depending on the cushion beneath you. A job loss, a medical emergency, or a failed startup feels very different when there's a safety net of generational assets. Acknowledging the wealth gap doesn't erase economic participation. Black Americans are active across industries, entrepreneurship is rising, and professional representation continues to expand. Both realities exist simultaneously. The United States offers scale and opportunity, but the wealth gap shapes how securely people move within that system. And ignoring that data would make this conversation incomplete. Number 2. Regional experience varies drastically. One of the most underestimated realities about living in America is geography. Living in Atlanta is not the same as living in rural Idaho. Houston feels different than Minneapolis. New York City operates on a different rhythm than small-town Appalachia. And that's not just about weather or accents, it's about systems. America isn't one experience, it's 50 different systems operating under one flag. Each state controls major areas of daily life: policing standards, education funding models, voting laws, business regulations, housing policies, tax structures. Even city governments shape enforcement culture, economic incentives, and public investment priorities. Two people can live under the same federal constitution and have completely different lived realities. Take economic ecosystems. Cities like Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and Houston have large, established Black professional communities, strong entrepreneurial networks, and visible representation in leadership roles. That creates density, and density creates opportunity. Networking is easier when the network already exists. Now compare that to rural areas with limited diversity, smaller labor markets, and fewer institutional pathways. Opportunity doesn't disappear, but access may narrow. Professional mobility may require relocation. Social comfort may shift. Policing culture also varies significantly by state and municipality. Crime policy, funding levels, oversight boards, and community engagement programs differ widely. Data shows disparities in certain regions are higher than in others. That inconsistency shapes perception and trust differently depending on zip code. Education funding follows a similar pattern. Because public schools are often funded through local property taxes, wealthier districts typically have more resources. That affects long-term mobility pathways and family decisions about where to settle. This variability creates a paradox. The United States offers national scale and opportunity, but your daily experience is hyperlocal. Two families with similar incomes can have dramatically different realities based purely on geography. That's why blanket statements about Black life in America often fall short. They flatten a country that operates more like 50 semi-autonomous environments. Some regions offer strong professional networks, cultural density, and economic mobility. Others may feel socially isolating or economically restrictive. The flag is the same. The systems are not. And understanding that regional variation is critical to navigating the country strategically rather than emotionally. Number 3. Social fatigue and code-switching culture. Not every challenge shows up on a spreadsheet. Some realities are quieter. They don't appear in GDP data, homeownership rates, or wealth gap statistics. They show up as mental energy, the invisible cost of constantly assessing environment, tone, and perception. there's an invisible layer many don't discuss: social fatigue. In professional spaces, corporate environments, and even everyday social settings, behavioral calibration often becomes part of the routine. Voice tone shifts, word choices adjust, body language tightens, humor gets filtered. Hairstyles, clothing, and expressions get evaluated through an extra mental checklist. Many refer to this as code switching. It's subtle, but it's real. Research in workplace psychology has examined how minorities navigate professional norms and identity presentation. Studies on workplace inclusion frequently note that employees who feel pressure to downplay aspects of their identity report higher levels of stress and cognitive load. That cognitive load matters. It's like running background apps on your phone all day. Nothing dramatic, but your battery drains faster. In competitive corporate environments, presentation often influences perception. The ability to read the room becomes a skill, and skills require effort. For some, this calibration becomes second nature. For others, it's exhausting. Social fatigue doesn't mean constant hostility. In many cases, it's not overt discrimination. It's the awareness of optics, the awareness of being the only one in the room, the awareness that small missteps may be judged differently. That awareness consumes bandwidth. Now, this isn't unique to America. Minority groups globally navigate identity dynamics. But within the US, where race has a long and documented historical context, that layer can feel particularly pronounced in certain industries or regions. The irony is that many Black professionals are highly successful within these systems. Advancement happens, leadership roles are secured, networks expand, yet the internal calculation sometimes continues quietly in the background. None of this eliminates opportunity. But it adds friction, and friction, even when mild, accumulates over time. Understanding social fatigue and code-switching culture isn't about dramatizing daily life. It's about acknowledging that economic participation doesn't automatically equal emotional ease. The systems may offer access. The navigation sometimes requires extra calibration. We've reached the end of the countdown. Thank you for staying through this entire breakdown. Topics like this deserve patience, nuance, and maturity. And if you're still here, that says a lot about you. Living in America as a Black person is not a single narrative. It is economic scale and measurable wealth gaps existing at the same time. Cultural dominance and global influence paired with regional inconsistencies. A structured civil rights framework that can be challenged, and a system that still requires strategic navigation. Opportunity that is real, and friction that is also real. The United States is one of the most powerful economic and cultural ecosystems in the world. It offers mobility, visibility, and structural leverage that many countries simply cannot match. At the same time, data shows disparities. Geography matters, social dynamics vary, and experience is highly dependent on where and how you position yourself. Both truths can exist simultaneously. And understanding that balance is what allows you to move intelligently instead of emotionally. If you found this analysis helpful, subscribe to Mr. Globe for calm, data-driven conversations that go beyond headlines and viral outrage. Like the video if you appreciate balanced discussions. And share your state, city, or perspective in the comments, respectfully. The goal here is clarity, not conflict. I'll see you in the next one.